Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to our webinar. Today we are joined by the University of Technology Sydney, and they will be here to discuss all things Australia and how you can gain access to Australia, how to apply, and more from Christy here and Ruth, who will be here in the questions section. So please do ask any questions if you have any. We do have a Q&A box at the bottom of our screen, and also listen out. And a little bit later, we will have a poll for you to interact with us in the webinar. Hello to all of those on Facebook. Please do ask questions in the box below, and we will get to those at the very end of our webinar today. And yeah, I'm going to hand you over to your host, Christy.
Thank you so much, and thanks to everyone who's been able to join us today. I'd like to start by introducing who's hosting today. So my name is Christy Marcolini. I'm the Regional Manager for Oceania and Africa at the University of Technology Sydney. My colleague Ruth John is joining us today as well. So if you're having any questions, put them in the Q&A box and she'll be online to answer those for you. We're going to start today with a presentation and guide you through some tips on how to fast track your admission to the University of Technology Sydney. The intended audience for the presentation today is actually for coursework students who are based in Africa using qualifications from Africa to gain admission to the university. If you're looking at research, then it is a different process and we can give you some advice on that through the Q&A if you want some tips on that. So let's get to it. So I am actually based in Sydney, Australia, and you may have seen other presentations regarding the land that we live on in Australia. So before I start the presentation, I'd like to give an acknowledgement of country. So I want to acknowledge the Darug people upon whose ancestral lands I am currently presenting from today. So I also want to pay respect to the elders, both past, present, and acknowledging them as the traditional custodians of the knowledge of this land and its waterways. So you may know Australia, the Indigenous culture of Australia, that is the country that we live on now. So it's to pay respect to the country that we as migrants to Australia now inhabit. So I want to get to know a little bit more about Sydney. It'd be nice if some of you can let us know if you've been to Sydney, if you have family in Sydney, relatives in Sydney, if you have any history of travelling to Australia. But basically, the University of Technology Sydney is a city-based university in the city of Sydney. So it is related to the CBD. You can see in this map that we are located close to, if you know the icons, the Harbour Bridge, the Opera House. We also are located close to the main central train station. And you can see on the map here in this section here that this is where the campus is. So we aren't a satellite campus based around different suburbs. We are based in the city of Sydney. So you can see here some tips about Sydney. We're the #1 best student city in the 2023 QS rankings. We're also the most populous city in Australia. We have 39% of our population were born overseas. So this gives way to the city being very multicultural, and you can see that we have a lot of food, different ways of dressing, different cultural, so it's very accepting in the city. We also are a financial and business service hub of Australia, and also we have the highest population of startups in around the university as well. And we are ranked as the #11th most livable city in the 2019 Mercer rankings as well. So if you didn't know much about Sydney, hopefully you can take away at least one or two of those tips from today. And moving on, we have a large campus. So our student population is around 44,000 students, with around 11,000 of those students being international students. We have over 3,000 staff supporting those students, whether academic or professional staff. And we're a young university, so we're still under 50 years of age, which is why you can see we are ranked in the top 50 under 50 and the Times Higher Education Young University rankings. We are the #1 young university in those rankings in Australia. we have a broad range of programs. So we have over 150 undergraduate and over 240 postgraduate courses. And they're in a mixture of traditional and emerging study areas or disciplines. And we have over 260,000 alumni living across the globe in at least 140 countries. So as I mentioned as well, we are a city-based university. So although it says here we have 5 locations, these are actually within the city of Sydney. So we have Broadway, Haymarket, Blackfriars, Botany, and Moore Park. Botany is actually a tech lab, which is a research-based space, and Moore Park is related to exercise management. So if you're interested in those programs, that would be the campus that you'd be at. So how are we ranked globally? We are, as I mentioned, ranked number 1 in Australia as a young university. If we're looking more globally, we're number 8 as a young university in the Times Higher Education rankings. We're number 11 in the QS Top 50 under 50. We are ranked globally 133rd and 137th in the Times Higher and the QS World University rankings. So you can see as a young university, we are very well recognised globally as well. And if you look at our subject areas, some students are always asking, what's your strength? What do you stand out for? If we look at it in terms of rankings, the perspective, we have here the top 100 study areas or subject rankings. We have accounting and finance, which is ranked 76. We have computer science and information systems ranked 68th. Engineering and technology, 83rd. Engineering, electrical and electronic, 88th. Law and legal studies is 72. And nursing is 24th globally. So you can see there is a mixture across our business, our engineering, our IT, our law, and our health faculties. We also have science, communication, and design, architecture, and building at UTS. So let's get, I guess, more acquainted to what to do if you are interested in applying to UTS. So where can you seek support with the application process? So after today, you can go away, think about, do I want to apply to UTS? What's my next step? Where should I go for more information? So we'd suggest probably starting with the UTS education agents. So these are trained experts on student admissions. They also can help you with your document verification and certification, and they have branches across Africa and Australia. So many of the agents who are based in Africa also have an onshore contact, so they can also help you post-arrival in Australia. They can also give you advice on your visa opportunities, whether it's for your student visa or your post-study work rights in Australia. I should say as well that UTS as a university, we can give you information on your course, your admission, but we can't give you advice on visas. So it is good to locate an education agent that can support you with those questions. We also would suggest that you visit the UTS website. There's a huge amount of information on our website, from course information to scholarships to tips on how to apply. We also have our course guides on our website. We have a chat to our community opportunity on our website. So there's students and staff who you can chat to through our website to ask them their opinion. We also have social media, Facebook, Instagram, and we provide student interviews, and you could also follow up with us via email. And there's a third option. So similar to today, we have events where you can meet with UTS staff, you can get advice on some courses, what the application process submission is, and also sometimes you can actually get your documents preliminary checked for admission to see if you may be eligible. So depending on the event that you go to, depends on the questions that you could get answered. So I would suggest using these websites for resources in terms of considering your application to UTS, because we'd suggest that you start thinking about what's the program you're interested in studying. Why do you want to study that program? How is that going to help your future? So we'd suggest you start with the UTS handbook. It has a huge amount of information regarding the course aims, the course structure, the subjects within the program. Also, the admission requirements are there as well. We have on our website the steps to apply, and we also have the link to finding an education agent and scholarship opportunities. So I'll share in the chat later these links so you can take them away after today's session as well. What is the best time? So when is the best time to lodge my application? If you're ready to lodge an application, but you're not sure when's the closing date or what are the timelines, let's work it out together. So don't put off until tomorrow what can be done today. I love this quote from Benjamin Franklin. Basically, if you're ready to apply, then apply. The applications are always open for future intakes until we get closer to each intake. So basically, the key dates to remember is, so we're in the Southern Hemisphere, so our next intake will be spring, which is our July session. And that means our applications are closing on the 30th of April. The other thing is to remember that orientation will start from the 31st of July. So orientation is where you will get to have faculty welcomes, attend the social events before the actual classes commence at UTS. It's a really good period to get to meet other students, settle into your accommodation, and then you can start your studies. So the actual spring session classes start from the 7th of August. So keep in mind that visa processing times are running around 2 weeks to 2 months at the moment, and that's just an average. It's a wide frame average, but that's an average from what we've experienced for the autumn session we've just completed. If spring session is too rushed for you, you can always defer if you've lodged your application. So to defer an application, you would email our office and request deferment. If you haven't lodged your application and you're thinking about next year, then we would suggest thinking about autumn session next year, which is our first session of the year. The closing for that session, the closing date will be the 30th of November. And then the actual session orientation period will start from the 5th of February. And then the classes will start from the 19th of February. So as I mentioned, orientation is that time for you to arrive on campus, get to meet the other students, attend faculty welcomes, attend the Essential International Student Welcome, join the clubs and society days, and just get to know the campus. So it's really essential. It's a great way to prepare yourself. And it's also a good way to understand the support services while you're at UTS as well. Because we are a big university, we do have a wide range of support services, from the health service on campus, which has GPs, counsellors. We have a careers service. We also have a help service, which is academic support. We have the library on campus. We have a health club, fitness centre on campus. So there's a lot to get to know about the campus. So just remember that we're in the Southern Hemisphere. So spring is actually July for us, and autumn is actually our summer session, where we're starting in February. So just be mindful of timelines as well. So what I would suggest is just keep in mind that your visa is, and go backwards from the session start date and the visa times that you can expect, and think about how long it might take to prepare your documents. So what documents should you submit with your application? Let's see. So there's a few essential documents. We would say that you need to have the completed application form. That's essential. That has the terms and conditions. It has the information that you need to give the university to start considering your admission. So to do the application form, there's a couple of options. On our website, we have an online application form portal, so you can actually log in yourself and lodge an application. Or you can ask the agent to lodge the application on your behalf, and they also have access to the online portal. Or if you prefer paper application, you can still print that and post it to the university. However, that process is going to take longer because of the postage system. When you're lodging the application, you should always include your academic history. So whether you're still studying, you can submit incomplete bachelor transcripts showing whatever you've completed to date, or if you're still in high school, whatever your high school, you can maybe provide an enrollment letter to explain the high school, the curriculum you're studying, and when you're due to complete the course. So the university, we need to see basically the qualification you're studying, where you're studying that qualification, and we can start assessment based on that. We also need to check whether you meet our English proficiency requirements. So in general, say you're studying in Kenya and you're doing your KCSE, or if you're in South Africa doing your high school as well, if you're studying your bachelor in Nigeria, if you're studying a qualification and you're applying for a UTS course that has an IELTS requirement of 6.5 and a 6.0 in writing, then that qualification should meet our English language requirements. However, if you're applying for a course, say the Bachelor of Nursing, which has an IELTS requirement of 7.0, then you will need to sit an English language test to meet the English requirements for those courses. So keep in mind, anything with an IELTS 6.5 and a 6.0 in writing and below, that can generally be met if your curriculum is, or your qualification is recognised and your curriculum is conducted in English. However, if the IELTS requirement is a 7.0 or above, then you will need to sit the English language test. However, you can apply for the course without having met the English, and if you're eligible academically, we can issue a conditional letter, and that will be conditional on whether you meet English or not. You also will have the opportunity to study English at the university, UTS College. So UTS College can provide an academic English program for you to consider if you're thinking about a package with an English program. So there are some documents you might need to provide depending on the program you're applying for at UTS. So some of the programs will request you to submit a CV, a statement of purpose. So the statement of purpose should be no more than 300 words. Also, a portfolio might be requested, or work experience. I would suggest, even if the program doesn't specify the CV or the statement of purpose, that you still submit that with your application, because there may be gaps in your study history, and a CV and a statement of purpose can explain to the university what you've been doing in those study gaps. So highly recommended to always submit the CV and the personal statement. The portfolio and the work experience will just depend on the admission requirements of your course. As I mentioned, you could see that in the handbook that does list the entry requirements, or you could see that in the course guides, the international student course guides as well. All right, so how long does the admissions process take? Good question. How long is a piece of string, really? No, basically, once you've lodged your application to UTS, the initial outcome should be within 1 to 2 weeks. So at the moment, I think the average is 2 weeks, just because we've received a high volume of applications recently. But we do aim to give you an outcome between 1 and 2 weeks. Of course, if you're applying for a course, say clinical psychology or Master of Physiotherapy, that may take longer because your application needs to be referred to the faculty, and they will do interviews in groups, so that may stretch the application outcome time. However, if you're applying for, say, a Master of Information Technology, a Master of Finance, Bachelor of Business, generally you'll get the outcome within 1 to 2 weeks. So also, you may receive an outcome that requires more documents to be submitted. So once you provide additional documents to the team, it usually shouldn't take more than 2 to 5 business days for us to respond to those documents that have been submitted. Okay. So just keep in mind as well, once you've applied, your application will go through to a student advisor at UTS. And the student advisor will assess your academic and English qualifications and proficiency, and then decide what is the outcome of your admission at that point. So you may receive an application outcome that is unsuccessful. And if that's the case, if you could follow a UTS college pathway to gain admission to the UTS course you've applied for, then we will suggest that in the outcome. So you'll receive an email with the UTS college pathway suggestion. So it could be that you've applied for direct entry to the Bachelor of Business, Unfortunately, your academic performance doesn't meet the direct entry requirements, so we're going to suggest to you to consider a Diploma of Business at UTS College. So they could be, say, an 8-month diploma, and you can attach that to the UTS Bachelor of Business. Once you finish the diploma, you'll gain entry to the second year of the UTS Bachelor degree. So the actual duration of the study time still remains as a 3-year course. If you're also applying for a master's degree, there are some pre-master options as well that you could follow through UTS College. And again, if you would be eligible for the pathway option, we'll suggest that as an alternative if you're not eligible for direct entry to the master's. You might receive an outcome that is pending documentation. And in that case, it just means that we can't make a decision until you provide that document we've requested. So in some cases, it might be that your application needs to be referred to the faculty for a decision. And until we get the document requested, we can't refer your application to the faculty. In other cases, it might be that, as I mentioned before, that there's a study gap that we need addressed. And until you give the CV or the personal statement, we can't make a final admission outcome or a decision on the final outcome of admission. So the last two conditions are conditional and offer. So conditional means if you meet the conditions on the letter, then you'll gain admission to the course at UTS. If you receive an offer, that means you're eligible for admission with no conditions attached, and you can proceed to the acceptance process of that offer. So how would you know if you're eligible for a scholarship at UTS? Good question. We do have a lot of scholarships on offer. So today I just want to talk through some of the main scholarships that usually students applying from Africa would be eligible for. So if we look at the undergraduate opportunities, we have the Undergraduate Academic Excellence Scholarship at 25% of the tuition fees for the duration of the UTS course. So the scholarships that I'm discussing today are valid for the duration of the course. So they apply to every session. And as I mentioned before, we have an autumn and a spring session, so 2 sessions each year. And some students ask, what is the study load for those sessions? So generally, it's 24 credit points, and that could be 3 or 4 subjects, depending on the value of those subjects. So normally, it's 6 credit points for each subject. So back to scholarships. Undergraduate Academic Excellence Scholarship is a 25% scholarship, which is merit-based. If you're eligible, you'd receive a letter when you're offered the program at UTS. You're also receiving a scholarship offer as well. And the scholarship is applied to the deposit that you'd need to pay to accept the offer. So it's already reduced from the deposit you need to pay. We also have the Undergraduate Tuition Fee Scholarship, which is 20%. So as I mentioned, academic excellence is merit-based. However, undergraduate tuition fee scholarship is less merit-based and more about the qualification and where you've completed it. And then we have the Diploma to Degree Pathway Scholarship at 20%. And that's for, as I mentioned, if you're thinking about going through the UTS College Diploma Pathway. If you finish the diploma at UTS College, moving into the UTS Bachelor degree, you'll receive a 20% scholarship. UTS College does have some scholarships available for their diploma as well, and they range between 4,000 to 8,000 Australian dollars. So all of these scholarships I've mentioned are automatically assessed, so you don't need to provide a scholarship application when you're applying to the university. So here I've just given a quick breakdown of the undergraduate tuition fee scholarship. As I mentioned, it's valued at 20%. I've listed here some of the common qualifications that we see students receiving this scholarship. And also there is a breakdown of the Australian dollar value, which is 8,560 of what that scholarship is valued at each year. So that's based on the Bachelor of Business tuition fees for 2023. So basically the students, you must be offshore before you start your studies at UTS, so it's not valid for anyone who's already studying in Australia. And you have to basically start the full-time studies in the degree at UTS in 2023. As I mentioned, the Undergraduate Academic Excellence Scholarship is a higher value. It is merit-based, so you would need to meet an academic merit criteria to receive the scholarship. But at the same time, if you meet that criteria, the value of your scholarship is higher because it's more than 20%. You get the 25% scholarship, and that's valued at $10,700 on average. That's based on the Bachelor of Business tuition fees again for 2023. And again, you have to be offshore to be considered for this scholarship. The diploma to degree pathway is similar value to the undergraduate tuition fee scholarship, but the difference is it's going to be for students following the diploma pathway. So I've just given a brief description here that it's for students completing, an example is the UTS Diploma of Business, UTS College Diploma of Business, going into the UTS Bachelor of Business. So as I mentioned before, anyone finishing that Diploma of Business at UTS College will gain entry to the second year of the UTS Bachelor of Business, and they'll also receive the 20% scholarship going into the Bachelor. So again, students must be offshore when they're applying for this scholarship as well. So we have at the postgraduate level 2 scholarships that are most common, and that's the Postgraduate Academic Excellence International Scholarship and the Postgraduate International Scholarship. So again, these are automatically assessed, so you don't need to provide a separate scholarship application to be considered for those scholarships. We have the UTS Postgraduate International Scholarship valued at 20%. If we're looking at the Master of Finance fees for 2023, the value of that is around $9,338 Australian dollars annually that you'll be receiving as reduced tuition fees from the university. So this applies to anyone who's going to commence a master's in the field of business, engineering, IT, communications, law, science, or transdisciplinary innovation. So just be mindful that it's those study areas, has to be a master's degree, and will automatically consider you for this scholarship if you meet the criteria. The Postgraduate Academic Excellence International Scholarship ranges from 25, so some students, depending on their academic merit, would receive a 25% scholarship, while others who have a higher level of academic merit will receive the 35% scholarship. Again, you must be offshore to be considered for this scholarship, and eligibility will be based on your bachelor, or if you've completed higher tertiary studies, say a master's degree, then you'd be considered based on completion of that master's. So this, if you were to receive the 35% scholarship, could be valued up to 16,341 Australian dollars annually if you're looking at the Master of Finance fees for 2023. So it is a good savings or scholarship towards your tuition fees, and it is to recognize high achieving students as well. Because your experience at UTS, you should be with like-minded students, engaged in your studies, enjoying the career progression that these studies will provide you as well. So let's recap. I know it was a lot of information, but let's recap of what are the main points that we've discussed today. So yes, UTS is based in the city of Sydney, and is Australia's #1 young university, according to the QS and the Times Higher Education rankings. You can reach out to our agent network, contact UTS, or visit us at an event for more information. We have 2 intakes a year, and the next application closing date will be the 30th of April for our mid-year session, which is spring session. So we require you to have the completed application form and at least some evidence of your academic history to start assessment of your application. You may need to submit additional documents, as I mentioned, to meet English proficiency, address any gaps in studies, provide work experience, or a portfolio, depending on the application or the course that you're applying for. And you should receive an outcome after lodging the application within 1 to 2 weeks. Plus, there's a variety of partial scholarships available for you. So hopefully this will help you. And basically, I just wanted to give you this quick rundown of what we discussed, because I think sometimes the application process can be a bit overwhelming. but it's actually quite straightforward once you've located an education agent to help you with your questions about admission, verifying or certifying your documents. Once you know the program you want to study and why you want to study it, know a bit more about UTS. The actual application process itself is quite streamlined and straightforward. Okay, so I think we're ready for questions. So I think Ruth has been online busy answering some questions. I might just have a quick look through and see if there's anything that I can answer myself. Okay. So someone has asked about, does English language test apply when your bachelor's was taught in English? So I'm not sure if this was asked before or after, but as I mentioned before, if the UTS course you're applying for has an English language proficiency requirement that is 6.5 overall and 6.0 in writing, then if your qualification is recognised and was conducted in English, you should meet the English language requirements for the admission to the course. So the only thing is perhaps if you're applying for, say, a Bachelor of Nursing or a Master of Teaching, those courses have a higher entry requirement for English, and then you would need to sit an English language test to meet that requirement. What else do we have? We do have a couple of questions about PhD studies. So with PhD studies, UTS does offer a variety of research areas. I would suggest the process is very different to a coursework degree application. So I would suggest that you have a look online at the UTS Graduate Research School. They've got a wide range of tips on their website as well. And they do explain, so depending on the study you're looking for, we suggest that you go and actually reach out to potential supervisors first and send them a short description of what research you're interested in with also your CV. And then if the academic is interested, they might suggest that you put forward an application. That's usually the way that you can go about applying for a research degree. So what else do we have here? Okay, there's lots of questions about tuition fees. What I might do is I'm just going to drop into the chat box now some common links as well. So I put in there the link that I mentioned before, which is the UTS handbook, the link to finding an education agent, the steps to apply for a coursework degree and scholarships, plus the email address if you want to follow up with UTS for any questions after today's session. So you can use those links to get more information. There is another website I'd like to share as well. I'll just quickly get that information for you. It's here. And I'll just put that in the chat too. So this one is the course guides. And within the course guides, so if you're looking for a bachelor degree, you can have a look in the undergraduate course guide. If you're looking for a master's degree or research degree, you can have a look in the postgraduate course guide. And in the back of the course guide is actually the fee structure for the programs and the entry requirements. So anyone who's questioning what the fees are, that's probably the best place for you to find the fees for 2023. Okay, I've got another question around, can we work alongside the degree? So yes, in Australia, on a student visa, you do have work rights while you're on a student visa. Currently, the students who are already in Australia on a student visa, those limitations were relaxed, but we will be returning to a restricted amount of work hours, and that will come into effect mid-year. But students can work while they're studying at UTS, and also during break periods. So say you have semester break between autumn and spring session, and again between spring and autumn at the end of the year, you have unlimited work hours during semester breaks. I should also mention as well that there is the UTS Careers Service. So some students actually work on campus, casual, as the priority is to be a student, but there are casual opportunities on campus. So we do have a careers service that gives you an automatic 15-minute drop-in service if you want to have your resume checked, or if you want to make a longer consultation to discuss interview skills, interview tips. That's an opportunity as well. But yeah, there is a careers hub at UTS, and they post job opportunities that are coming up as well. So it's a good opportunity if you're studying to tap into that service. Okay, someone is asking about whether they've already done a master's degree, if it's possible to apply for a second master's. It's a good question. It depends case by case, I would say. So in terms of applying to the university, we would have a look at the reasons. And this is again why I was saying it's good to submit a statement of purpose. So we'd have a look at what's your intention? Why do you want to study another master's? How does that add to your skill set? How does that add to your career progression? What is going to be the outcome? What will be the return on your investment to do that additional study and the actual financial investment to do the study? So it's best to put those cases, an explanation in your statement of purpose, and we'll look at that as case by case. In regards to the question around IELTS, if you've studied in Norway and Nigeria, we'd probably have to look at your qualifications and double check. So if your studies in Norway were not in English, we might need to double check. If you've done your bachelor's in Nigeria, if you're applying for a UTS course that has a 6.5 IELTS requirement, we could probably use your Nigerian bachelor degree if it's recognised to meet the English language requirements. So I hope that's a bit of help in terms of that question. Okay, someone's asking regarding internships while they're studying in Sydney. So UTS does offer what we call work integrated learning opportunities, also internships in some degrees at UTS. This is built into the degree. So it might depend on the program you're looking for. So I'd suggest having a look at the handbook, the link I've shared in the chat. Could give you a good idea of whether the program you're looking at already has an internship built into it. If you already have business concepts, business ideas of something you want to get off the ground and you're just not sure how to start your own business, UTS actually has something called UTS Startups. So it's a free service. You can go in and get advice from the UTS Startups crew, I guess we would call them. And they often host a lot of events as well, which is great for networking. They'll connect you with other like-minded students and business owners who might be able to support you with your startup ideas as well. So there are different ways of engaging in that internship opportunity. If you're doing a program, back to nursing, I keep mentioning nursing, but if you're doing a program like the Bachelor of Nursing, that already has work experience components built into it. Because you must do a certain number of hours to qualify to be a registered nurse when you graduate. And then we have programs like, say the Bachelor of IT or the Bachelor of Engineering Honours. That program actually has the option to include a 1-year Diploma of Professional Practice into the program, where students can actually do 2 semesters of work-related studies. So you might actually be able to have paid or unpaid work experience while you're studying at UTS, and that will actually give you an advantage when you graduate as well. Okay. Someone is saying, as an alumni of UTS, looking for PhD, any specific path to be considered? If you're an alumni of UTS, I would suggest if you're looking at PhD studies, you're probably looking to extend PhD studies into the same study area of the program you did at UTS. So you'll probably want to talk to the academics that you've studied with, your subject coordinators, for any suggestions in terms of research in the field that you're looking for. But as I said again, you'd have to reach out to potential supervisors, whether you're alumni or not, to tap into whether the research you're looking at conducting is actually something UTS can support you with. Okay. So I might just have a look and see if there's anything else I can help some students with. Okay. Hopefully there's a few different questions around English and scholarships and courses. So as I mentioned, we have such a wide variety of courses. I would suggest using that handbook link to go through the different faculties at UTS. As I mentioned, we have business, we have engineering, we have IT, we have communication, we have education, we have health, we have what's referred to as the Graduate School of Health as well, which is our Master of Physiotherapy, Master of Psychology, Master of Orthotics, Master of Good Manufacturing Practice, all those programs as well. We have Design, Architecture and Building, we have, who have I forgotten? Law, we have science. So there's a whole spectrum of programs, as I mentioned, over 140 undergraduate and over 200 postgraduate programs to choose from. So definitely go into the handbook, see what we have on offer that matches what probably is something that you may be looking for. And again, reach out. I've put the email address there. Reach out if you've got any questions regarding the next steps of applying after today's session finishes as well.
Okay, thank you, Christy. I think we've got through quite a few questions actually today in the session. Is there any last words that you want to give the students, any advice for applying?
I would probably suggest definitely start with the research of the course you want to study, because you want to make sure you're investing in your future. You're transferring to another country to do that as well. So it's like building your foundation. You want to do it the right way. Find the program that's right for you first. Find the agent that can support you with that the best. It's fine if you go to 2 or 3 agents and discuss with them what your options are, and then choose the one that you're most comfortable with to handle that process for you. The best thing to do, the agents will lead you through those next stages as well. So everything will sort of come into play and start rolling once you get those two parts together and connect them. And then hopefully when you have questions towards the admission at UTS and starting UTS, we'll probably check in with the students again anyway, because we'll do virtual onboarding and our agents will provide pre-departure sessions as well. So you're in good hands. There's lots of support. Use all the services available. That's probably my tip.
Amazing. Okay, well, thank you so much for all the information today. And thank you guys for joining and all of your questions. They've been really, really interesting. For those of you who have registered and are watching this on the recording, all the information is on the screen right now, and we will be in touch very, very soon. All right, everybody, I'm going to say good evening, good afternoon, and I hope you all have a great day or evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.